Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nivasesha Sunyavali Praskatya Desatarni Om Gyanatimirandasya Jana Jana Salakaya Chaksu Samilitan Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Caitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Sayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sapadantikam Vanjakaupaturbyascha Kripasindubhayavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Hare Krishna. We are reading about the wonderful installation of Gopal Srinathji atop Govardhan Hill. Sri Madhavendra Puri installed the deity, And all the Brijbasis were so enthusiastic to interact with Gopal Srinathji. So every day a great ceremony was performed for the pleasure of Gopal. And then the next day, almost as before, there was an Anukuta ceremony. Anukuta ceremony means very much reminding one of the ceremony in which Krishna's order was followed to worship Govardhan Hill, and the Brijbasis, headed by Nanda Maharaj, made wonderful offerings, and the whole land between the village of Anayor and the village of Govardhan, more or less, almost that whole area, which is called Anukuta Kshetra, it was filled with food to offer to Giriraj. And then here it was food offered to Gopal. So there was an Anakuta ceremony the next day, almost as before, and all the Brahmanas prepared food and Gopal accepted them. Now what did you just hear?
Gopal accepted them, Brahmanas also.
Yeah, the Brahmanas had a big ceremony. But what's really astounding, the food was offered and Gopal accepted it. What is astounding about that?
Gopal will accept when there is devotion in the offering.
That he did accept it.
Mercy. He was merciful.
He was mercifully accepted it. Also, because we're hearing how the deity, the Vigraha form, the archer form of the Lord, is Krishna. Even though it's made out of matter, it's not exactly matter, it's not truly matter, because we could speak about it philosophically, how it's Krishna's energy and there's no such thing as matter. As Prabhupada said, that when the external energy of the Lord is covered by Maya, then it appears to be matter. Or matter means it is separate from the Lord. That's the appearance. Maya cuts our relationship, conscious relationship with something of the external energy, and we see it as if it's separate from the Lord and it is meant for us. That's the function of Maya. So philosophically we can understand there is nothing separate from the Lord, and the external energy is Krishna's external energy, and the external energy is just one form of Krishna, one aspect of Krishna, and it's Krishna. So it's not difficult for him to accept things through that external energy. That's looking at it philosophically, but who's so philosophical, practically speaking? That the food was offered, something material was offered to something manifest in the material world, and Krishna is that deity, and something material satisfied him. He accepted it because, as Merlina Prabhu said, Patram Pushpam Palam Leom Yomam Bhakta Prayachati. He accepts when something is offered with devotion. That's the connection between, that's what connects the thing that is offered of the material world to the spiritual person, Krishna. It is the devotion, because Krishna doesn't have any need for the objects of the material world. He doesn't have any need for anything. What to speak of something of the material world. But when that is offered with devotion, this is the facility that Krishna gives us in the material world, because all we see is matter, and all we experience is matter. So Krishna gives us the facility of the deity He comes in the form of the deity. He descends, practically speaking, into the material world to give us a facility to use matter in his service and thereby develop devotion for him, love for him, bhakti. So what do you think about that? I explained it in that way so you would think about it. What do you think about that?
From what I heard now from Guru Maharaj, I understand that matter becomes spiritual because through devotion.
Not exactly. Matter is already spiritual. Looking at it from the point of view from the Uttama point of view, matter is already spiritual because it's Krishna's energy. It's Krishna's, but it's his external energy. So what we call as matter is that external energy covered by our consciousness covered by Maya, and that's how we perceive it as matter. But I saw that Prabhupada didn't perceive the material world as matter. He just saw it as Krishna's. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandha Yukta Vairagya Uchate.
But when we use the word matter,
yes,
then we mean that external energy which has been cut off from
in our consciousness. It's still Krishna's external energy, different from his internal energy. Krishna Shakti, Paraprokta, Chetra, Gyakya, Tatapara. There are three energies described in the Puranas or Upanishads, Vishnu Purana perhaps. There's the internal energy, external energy, and the Jiva Shakti. And then there's the Maya Shakti, that's four. Looking at it like that. But they're Krishna's energies. So Krishna's energies, when one has proper vision, a vision free from Maya should be used in Krishna's service. Now what happens if you're covered by, consciousness is covered by Maya, and you don't use it in Krishna's service? And then what happens? You become entangled in karma. And the result of that is what? Repeated birth and death and birth and death and birth and death and everything that comes along with it. And a person who's conditioned means his vision is cut off from reality. He doesn't see. He sees through the lens of Maya. Then he sees it's such a frustrating experience being in Maya, because you see the material, it's all there, it's all like opportunities. You see this whole universe, it's like walking into the most wonderful mall. I don't know if there's such a thing, but you walk into the most wonderful mall that's glittering and everything is trying to be appealing to you, but you can't touch anything. You can just see it and imagine. And therefore Prabhupada will sometimes say that sense gratification is mental speculation. Did you ever hear him say that? What does that mean? It means that it's just existing in your mind. The concept that you can enjoy the material energy, it just exists in your mind because you can't really do it. It's just another speculation of the mind. It's so radical, isn't it? But it's real. You know what radical means?
Different from the
very dramatic.
No.
Radically different.
But what does it mean? What is it?
Deep.
Now, like, we will. Muli. What is muli? Radish. But why is it? What is it?
It's a root.
It's a root. So radical means you're dealing with the root of the issue. And if you just clip the top of the weed and miss the root, then it will grow back. But this is the root. Now, any questions on this? Yes.
Just to clarify this a little more, I thought we say there is an internal energy which is spiritual and the external energy is material. But you give it another aspect with saying that external energy, only when it is cut off from the consciousness, then it becomes material. But I thought it is always material.
No, it's always the external energy. So if you want to equate external energy with material energy, as we usually do, then you're correct. But this is just a little more of a subtle technical explanation. But it's still Krishna's external energy. It's not the same as his internal energy.
And I remember you saying also that this material energy, when it is connected with Krishna, it becomes spiritualized.
Yes.
It is not spiritual, but becomes spiritualized.
It doesn't become the same as the internal energy. But it's like the internal energy, in the same way as a gold box is almost the same as a gold-plated box, but it's not the same. So the external energy, Bahiranga Shakti, becomes spiritualized, like covered with gold, and it sparkles in a wonderful way. Clear? So commonly we say the material energy, the material world, but then we also say Vishwapurna Sukhayate, that this universe becomes a place of happiness for a person who's pure-hearted. Ishtadeva Spurti. Sees everything as a manifestation of his Lord. Any other questions or comments? Because this next verse in purport is wonderful.
I remember Prabhupada saying about the iron rod in the fire.
Yes, Tadiya.
And then Prabhupada said, if you don't believe me, then you touch it.
Did anyone take him up on that? Why? Because everyone believed him. The iron rod becomes fire.
That was a very good analogy.
Yeah. It's Tadiyanam Samacharam. So that devotees many years ago, when we were all very, very young in the early days, so devotees would walk into like a supermarket and then take out their thread and offer everything in the supermarket. The mood is okay, but not so practical. You can just offer the whole world like that, the same way. Why just the supermarket? But that's how someone like Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, they saw the world just needed to be. There's nothing wrong with the world. It just needs to be engaged in Krishna's service. So this next verse is very interesting too, because Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he's going to comment, because he says, this is the verse we just read, the next day, almost as before, there was an Anakuta ceremony, all the Brahmins prepared food, and Gopal accepted them. So it's also wonderful, not only that Gopal accepted them, that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami could understand and Mahaprabhu was telling the story of that he could understand that Krishna accepted them. That's also wonderful, because with our material eyes we don't see that, but with spiritual eyes, someone who's spiritualized can actually see that. So what does spiritualize? It means premanjana tvarita bhaktivedasana. One's eyes are coated with the salve of love. And it's a lens. Just like if we have blue sunglasses on, then we see as blue. So when our consciousness is actually completely clear and we've attained the shelter of the internal energy, then we see in this way. And a person on the highest level of Krishna consciousness, he sees everyone as a devotee. He sees everyone as serving Krishna, except for himself. But he sees everyone either serving indirectly or directly. Directly, just like if someone sees the prisoners in the prison, he sees from outside, he sees that they're still under the government. They're still serving the government's will, desire. So here's the next verse. Braja vasi lokera krishne sahaja puriti gopalera sahaja puriti braja vasi prati. The ideal place to execute Krishna consciousness is Vrindavan. It's where the people are naturally sahaja priti. They naturally have an inclination to love Krishna. And Krishna, Vrajavasi Pati, and Krishna has that same inclination towards them. It's just natural. And listen to Prabhupada's purport. Now I divided it into two parts, even though there's no two parts here. But first I'll read the first part, then the second part. And then when we're reading this, both these parts, they both have some interesting elements. So I'm going to read the first part and then ask you a little more softly, perhaps. And then I'm going to ask you what you think of it, so please listen carefully.
This is the definition of excuse. Seek to lessen the blame attaching to a fault.
You'd know where it's coming from. That's an excuse. Lessening the blame. See, Krishna knows everything in advance. He would know you would make an excuse, so he chastised you before I even had a chance to.
The first time it's happening in my lifetime.
Another excuse. Any more? We can go, see how many you can think of. So listen carefully. In the Bhagavad Gita 4:11, it is said, Ye tamam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham. There is a responsive cooperation between the Supreme Lord and his devotees. The more a devotee sincerely loves Krishna, the more Krishna reciprocates. So much so that a highly advanced devotee can talk with Krishna face to face. Krishna confirms this in the Bhagavad Gita. Tesam satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantite. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. The actual mission of human life is to understand Krishna. Is to understand Krishna and return home back to Godhead. Therefore, one who is sincerely engaged in the service of the Lord with love and faith can talk with Krishna and receive instructions by which he can speedily return home back to Godhead. So what do you think of that? Yes.
The relationship is a reciprocal.
Or what do you remember? Or
So there is a reciprocation in this verse which is mentioned that Krishna reciprocate if you do your bit.
If you
do your bit, if you do your seva properly, if you follow the bhakti yoga properly.
Or if you have bhakti.
Yes.
Yes, so he reciprocates. Thank you. Anyone else like to say something?
The more a devotee is sincerely devoted to Krishna, Krishna reciprocates accordingly.
Yes.
And in that way, the devotee can even talk face to face with Krishna.
Yes. And what's the other half of that? He could talk to Krishna face to face, and Krishna reciprocates. Of course, you can talk to the wall, but the wall won't reciprocate unless you're very special. So Krishna will reciprocate. How? How will Krishna reciprocate?
Through buddhi.
He says he will give instructions, because the devotee, he wants to come to Krishna, and Krishna will give him the guidance that will allow him to come. So in one sense, there's no lack in this world. The only lack is devotion to Krishna, because Krishna will do all the rest. Or the lack is the sincerity of desire to want Krishna. We want so many things, but how much do we really want to serve Krishna and be with Krishna? Anyone? Thank you. Anyone remember anything else or want to say anything else?
Krishna also, Prabhupada also said that understand Krishna and return back home.
Yes. The actual mission of human life is to understand Krishna and return home back to Godhead. Therefore, one who is sincerely engaged in the service of the Lord with love and faith can talk with Krishna and receive instructions by which he can speedily return home back to Godhead.
I was thinking of that particular sentence being sandwiched between these two parts. So I was thinking that probably Prabhupada is saying there that Krishna will give you the instructions through buddhi to how to go back home, back to Godhead.
That's one way.
Well, I was thinking, why did he sandwich that particular sentence between two?
But that's one way he can do it. Right? But what's another way? In other words, the one way that you're saying, that Prabhupada is definitely saying, that I give the understanding. So he gives them the Buddha Yoga. He gives them the understanding. But another way to look at it is that's Krishna talking to him. So one could see it, he's given me the intelligence, but one could also see this is recognize Krishna talking to me in this way. Now what's the glory of that is that the Prabhupada also said there's a prerequisite. It's to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love. That's priti purvakam. It's not just anyone who it's actually, because there's a dangerous part too. Krishna told me he's given me the intelligence to drive my car through your front lawn, there's all kinds of people who think like this. Religious people, non-religious people. So we have a system to check whether it's Krishna giving us some instruction or telling us something, and that's our realization has to be in harmony with sadhu, shastra, guru. That's to protect us from, because people are crazy basically. They can imagine anything. And it's happened on more than one occasion. And Because the material world, in psychology, there's a term inflated. In our terminology, we could say puffed up. Means that we have a pride that doesn't match our actual substance. What we think we are doesn't match who we actually are, because who are we? We're tiny, insignificant little souls, eternal souls that are wonderful but tiny. Thank you. Any other remembrances, or anyone want to say something? Okay, now here's part 2. Now please listen carefully. It's shorter than part 1, but listen very carefully, and I'm going to call on you two first to see what you remember. So, today, many scholars defend the science of religion, and they have some conception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But religion without practical experience of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is no religion at all. Srimad Bhagavatam describes this as a form of cheating. Religion means abiding by the orders of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one is not qualified to talk with him and take lessons from him, how can one understand the principles of religion? Thus, talks of religion or religious experience without Krishna consciousness are a useless waste of time. What did you think of that? Should I read it again, or did you? Yes? Would anyone like me to read it again? Yes. Very interesting. Heavy also. Little sentences like, if one is not qualified to talk with him, meaning Krishna, and take lessons from him, how can one understand the principles of religion? So why is Prabhupada putting this here? Here it is, I'll read it again. Today many scholars defend the science of religion. So that sounds like that's good. Yes? And they have some conception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Good, yes? But, now after with a word like but, then you know that the mood is going to change. But religion without practical experience of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is no religion at all. So what is Prabhupada criticizing? Yeah.
Prabhupada just turn the whole thing in the way, other way. That's without the practical experience and connected with the service to the Lord.
Yes.
So someone can't just by imagine or something, just
And he can't, even if he's a scholar, because he's talking about scholars here. And that's the key part. Otherwise, it's hard to quite understand why Prabhupada is saying what he's saying. Today, many scholars defend the science of religion. They say, yes, religion, they're scholars, but they're not devotees. They're scholars. So their concept of what religion is, even though they're defending it, what they're defending is wrong, because they're not devotees. Because they don't have an actual understanding of what religion is. It's coming from, as you said, mental speculation. So therefore, Prabhupada says, but religion without practical experience, in other words, if they're not devotees, it's just coming from their mind, they're not having an experience of Krishna, it's not religion at all. It's just their own idea of what religion should be, as opposed to religion being actually what Krishna is saying. Is that clear? But it's tricky. I found this paragraph is tricky. And then it gets even more, and then Prabhupada says, religion means abiding by the orders of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the scholars who are devotees, then there's no problem. But the scholars who are just scholars, mental speculators, who are speculating on what Shastra means. I mean, if you've ever read any scholars, what they write about the Bhagavatam or the Bhagavad Gita, they get it all upside down, topsy-turvy. What's the Bengali word for upside down? How would you say that in Mangala? Is there such a, there must be something. Opposite. Viparya.
Yeah, so in Bengali it's ulta. Ulta. Upside down is ulta.
Gujarati?
Undhu.
Ulta.
In what language?
Bhojpuri.
How about in Creole?
Obvious.
Tamil?
Talaki.
Punjabi? No one can understand each other. Now it's clear why. And also in our minds we have different languages. We speak in different minds, with a different mind than other people, so it's hard to understand. So Prabhupada says it's no religion at all. Srimad Bhagavatam describes this as a form of cheating. So if it's because Prabhupada is saying that religion means the order of the Lord, of Krishna's order. So if you're going to decide something different from what Krishna means as religion, then it's cheating. Religion means abiding by the orders of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And here it even gets more, Prabhupada says something even more interesting. If one is not qualified to talk with him and take lessons from him, how can one understand the principles of religion? So this again is referring to, well, okay, just take that. If one is not qualified to talk with Krishna or take lessons from him, how can one understand the principles of religion? So what's your answer to that?
Means you don't have relation with Krishna, so it's dry.
Yes, it's dry. And Prabhupada said that before. But the question is, how can you understand? He said, if you're not qualified to talk with him and take lessons from him, how can you understand how can you understand what religion is? So, would you say you're qualified to talk with him? Only you. Wait. I'm trying to. So, say we're not qualified to talk with him. Does that mean that we can't understand what religion is? And if we're because the qualification to talk with him is priti purvakam. So you have to have devotion. So if you don't have that level of devotion, priti is very high. If we don't have that, that means we can't understand what religion is. And if we don't understand what religion is, then we can't advance. So the answer is that we have to hear from, take instructions from him and take instructions from those who know him and know what he wants to, what those principles are, and then we can understand, even though we ourselves may not be qualified. I remember when I was in the university, I read the Bhagavad Gita. Not Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, it wasn't even published. But I remember reading it, and I thought this is I was so excited that I read it in one day. I couldn't stop. And I thought, this is the greatest book I've ever read. But there's one thing I don't agree with. Why should he say he's God? Krishna say he's God. That means I thought it was the most wonderful book. It was the best book I ever read. But I didn't understand anything. Because I wasn't hearing it from someone who not only wasn't I qualified, but I wasn't hearing it from someone who was qualified. But when you read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, then you know who Krishna is and why he's saying that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You know why he's saying it. Thus, talks of religion or religious experience without Krishna consciousness are a useless waste of time. So, because if people have so-called religious experiences, but it's really not transcendental, it's just coming from the happiness of their mind or intelligence or material experience, it's not coming from the Goloka Vrindavan, then it's going to lead you to go to that place as opposed to Goloka Vrindavan. Would you like to go to Goloka Vrindavan?
Yes.
Yes. Have you spent time in Braj?
Not long.
How long?
Continuously I was there for I think 5 months or something.
That's long. And that's enough for some Braj Raj to get in your heart.
And for I think for 6 years I used to go every 2 months, not once in 2 months, once in a month.
Why do you like Vrindavan?
It's I can't understand the whole thing, but still we I think we can feel that there's this spiritual energy is there, and make that divine relation to realize something like that.
Mataji, have you spent time in Vrindavan?
No, it was just for visit, 2 or 3 days for visiting in Delhi.
You like?
It was 10 days in Govardhan.
Did you like? It's natural. And you?
Yes, spent some time. Not 5 months, just 2 weeks the maximum. Yes.
And what did you think of Vrindavan?
The last visit for me was very good. I really felt, I internally felt happy for the last visit, but before that was more, was excitement to go there. The last visit was really good for me.
Deeper.
It was deeper, yes. It was. I did not run from one temple to another temple, so I just stayed at one place. It was very, very blissful here.
Yeah, first time it's running, excitement.
Yes. It was 2 visits of excitement running around.
You like Vrindavan?
I have affinity for certain places in Vrindavan.
What place?
Ter Kadamna, one place, Vrindakun, and Krishna Balram temple. Like these 3 places, more affinity than.
I've been there more than 20 years ago, but as a tourist. I went to Mathura and Vrindavan. I just went as a tourist. But later on I find a little bit of difference in what I missed when I went first time.
You like Vrindavan?
Very much.
Linda, do you like Vrindavan?
Yes,
It's been a while, yes?
been a while.
Would you like to go back soon?
Krishna willing, we'll see.
But would you like to?
I would.
You like Vrindavan?
Especially walking around in the soft sand.
How about rolling around in the soft sand is also not so bad. Did you ever do that?
Yeah.
Oh, we won't tell.
That place where we have been given a seva to maintain that place. It's
Yeah.
very sweet.
Yes, very sweet. Okay, any questions or comments?
hearing Srila Prabhupada's purport, it's so essential of devotees' presence in all aspects of our life.
Say that again. Hearing Prabhupada's purports.
Purport, it is like he said, no, that you said that person who knows Krishna and
yes.
hearing from him, it's so essential for one's Krishna consciousness. Devotee's presence is there in all aspects of his life.
Of his life, that person's life. Yes, now I understood. Okay, I want to read another verse or two. Throngs of people came from different villages to see the deity of Gopal, and they took Mahaprasadam sumptuously. When they saw the super excellent form of Lord Gopal, all their lamentation and unhappiness disappeared. Did you ever have that experience when you stood in front of the deities and you have so many problems or so many thoughts, but when you stand in front of the Lord's, then you feel at home and the mind can be peaceful. If you enter into their realm, the realm of their beauty, your mind will go there, and otherwise you can keep the same mind and keep all the anxieties and lamentations. But if you enter into their realm with your mind by focusing on their beautiful form, by giving something, by offering prayers, by chanting. And the same thing when we chant kirtan or japa, we want to enter into that realm rather than to bring the holy names into our mind in a little way. All the villages in neighboring Vrajabhumi, Vrindavan, became aware of the appearance of Gopal, and all the people from these villages came to see him. Day after day, they all performed the Anakuta ceremony. So it went on again and again and again, because when they saw him, they wanted to serve, because the people of Braja had such a natural inclination to love and serve Krishna. In this way, not only the neighboring villages, but all the other provinces came to know of Gopal's appearance. Thus, people came from all over, bringing a variety of presentations, because when you come before the Lord, you should bring something. It is natural. The people of Mathura, who are Bara Dhani, very big capitalists, also brought various presentations and offered them before the deity in devotional service. Thus, countless presentations of gold, silver, garments, scented articles, and eatables arrived. The store of Gopal increased daily, and one very rich Kshatriya of the royal order constructed a temple. Someone made cooking utensils, and someone constructed boundary walls. Each and every family residing in the land of Brajabhumi contributed one cow. And in this way, thousands of cows became the property of Gopal. Now, this is a very important purport that I don't want to read now because we can go over it in some detail. It's quite amazing, actually. But it's Prabhupada's commenting on that verse where each and every family in Braj contributed one cow. And we'll read the purport, Krishna willing, next time. But what did you think of how Gopal became very wealthy?
By getting a cow, he became wealthy.
And so many other things. Also, I thought one little thing I saw, they made utensils for him. They didn't go to Big W to buy utensils or something. They actually made things in those days. And everything was made locally. People lived in a much more simple way. In some senses, it didn't maybe have all the conveniences that we have, but it was a more wholesome life, a healthy life. and there was less chance of a big economic disaster that could that throws everything off, that's out of your control, like that. What else do you think about how Gopal became wealthy?
Through devotion of devotees.
Yeah, and the people were naturally inclined. Nowadays, people are less inclined. I heard Prabhupada one time speaking in a recording about how the British had made railroads in India, and they had somebody. They basically paid some Indian gentleman to write a book about how all the great accomplishments of the British in India and how they've given so much to the Indians. And one of the things they talked about was they gave the railroads. Otherwise, people didn't even have railroads. What to speak of airplanes or whatever? But they didn't even have railroads. And then Prabhupada explained why they made the railroads. It wasn't to help the people at all. It was to be able to bring the raw materials, and also Africa, all over. This was what they did. To bring the raw materials to the port so that they could export them and make money for themselves. And then and Prabhupada said this caused so much harm, because previously he said that a farmer would be growing his food and he would have extra, more than he needed, and then he would donate something, he would give it to the temple. And as soon as the railways were there, instead of giving it to the temple, they thought, let me send it to the marketplace and thereby make more money. So just every step forward one takes materially, and it gives a kind of convenience. It also has a shadow to it. It has the heads, but you get the tails too of the coin. You can't just take the heads part. You have to take both sides. So people's greed increased, and their going to the temples decreased. Many years ago, I went to the village of Caitanya. It's a long story in relationship to my going, but not that long, but not worth telling. But it was so peaceful there. Many years ago, there was no electricity. There was no electricity, and it was so peaceful. And I've seen other places, and when we went to Rupsanatan Smriti Tirtha. Have you ever been in East Bengal, Bangladesh?
Yes.
You've been there to Rupsanatan Smriti? Yeah. Where it's so isolated. You have to go on these very small roads. You can't even go by car or anything.
Yeah.
Very peaceful, yes.
Oh.
A different world. Yeah. And anyway, in Ekachakra, there was no electricity, and I was there on Ekadasi. It was actually maybe a near-Delhi Ekadasi. And that night, just all the village gathered at this Bankim Roy temple. And the lighting was by these little kerosene lights, not the kerosene lanterns, but these. You'd have kerosene and just with a little wick coming out, and everyone sat around and just sang the songs of Narottama Das Thakur in the courtyard of Bankim Roy, and at the end they distributed a little prasadam to everyone. It was from a different time. And I remember thinking that as soon as there's electricity, no one will come anymore. They'll be watching television or something like that. That was maybe before the internet and before mobile phones. But So you get the positive, the benefit. You can know all the disastrous things that are occurring every part of the world, all at the same time. But you also get distraction, unlimited ways to distract oneself as to what the purpose of life is. Unlimited ways to distract oneself. So one could ask the question, is it really a benefit or not? Is it really progress? So, and the hardest thing is you can't live in this world without it, practically speaking. Do you have your phone with you? 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 No. You have your phone with you? Yes. I forgot mine, otherwise I would have it. I was in too much of a rush. Isn't it peculiar? We can't, it's part of us. We can't think of walking anywhere without it, living without it. It's almost like part of it. It's like another body or something like that. You know, a hand. You can't live without your hand. You can't live without your phone. Anyway, this next purport of Prabhupada is very interesting also. So we're leaving, hearing how Gopal became the owner of thousands of cows. Every family in Braj donated one cow. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. We shall end now. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Caitanya Caritamrta ki jai. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Sri Caitanya Caritamrta ki jai. Tago Premanande Hare.